Derek, if you can introduce Bob, right?
Oh, it'd be my pleasure.
And then you have got everything there. Bob, thank you very much for doing this. We really appreciate that. And
good to be here, my gentlemen. Good to be here.
I'll stay in the background. Let you take it from here.
I've had the pleasure of working with Bob now for 20 some years, and nobody that I've met in my career understands scaling a business better than Bob Lane does. From being the CEO and president of Commodore when they launched the Commodore 64, to opening new markets in Europe for Nortel. And Bob, I'll let you talk a little bit more about your career. What I can say is that most people would consider even a quarter of your accomplishments as a very successful career. So with no further ado, I'm going to let Bob talk about restarting business after COVID and some of the things that we might want to think about. And a gentleman well worth listening to, Bob Lane.
Thanks very much, Derek. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon and to get started to talk. I guess maybe the best thing to do is to start off and say that we're in unproven times at the moment. We've really never experienced what we're going through. We don't really know what to do about this, and so therefore, as John Ruffalo said, we've pulled back the Band-Aid. We've exposed a lot of issues. We've seen a lot of weaknesses and vulnerabilities. And, going forward, we've got to get it right. I think more importantly, we have an opportunity. The future is really ours, all about to create. And I think getting back to it, what I really want to talk today about is people. I want to talk about processes, and I want to talk about technology. I'd like to set this straight by saying that I suggest we've exposed a lot of technology, but I think we found a lot of gaps. We found a lot of issues, and I don't think a lot of what we know about technology we really understand. I don't think we know how to use it quite yet. I don't think everybody has been trained in the value of it. And we're going to talk about a number of things as we think of going back to work and going back to school. And I'm going to talk about seniors. I'm going to talk a little bit about retailing and small business, talk about working from home. And then I'd like to introduce a subject of technology and the fourth utility. As Derek said, I'm entering my 60th year of business. I started young. I was born well before before the Second World War, so I've seen rationing, and I've seen a lot of things over the years. But one of the things that has always impressed me is, first of all, people. It's people that make the world happen. We create. We make it. We make things happen. Machines don't do that. We're all born with internal technology that is better than any computer that has been created or probably will ever be created. But it's really all about making sure that everyone gets access to the opportunities that such things happen. How to make it happen. Next, we got to look at processes. Processes determine what happened and how we employ them. And last of all, let's look at technology. I well remember in 1982, I offered school boards in the city of Toronto the PET computer. We also offered them Apple. We also offered them some Commodore 64s. I'll tell you the reaction. Oh, Mr. Lane, my child will be corrupted if we have a PET computer. Steve found the same thing when we did that in the United States with Apple. So fast forward to some technology today. Many of you have read on Facebook or whatever you look at that COVID-19 is now being that 5G that we're now putting on cell towers is being perpetuated on cell towers. So these are the gaps that I see in technology that I'd like to talk a little bit about, chat a little bit about, and really look forward. Because I think COVID-19 has exposed us to the real need of connectivity. We have to understand the impact of technology on our various ages and our various societal and the demographics of our people. While our business processes have embraced technology, we've not quite got technology understood by everyone across our entire communities. All right, sure, the under 20s, they know nothing else. They know nothing other than a smartphone. Pen and pencil, paper, slide rules, a printed book, even a calculator to solve a problem, they never think about that. I got to think about the person who is 65 or who is 70 or is 80 and is all of a sudden after COVID-19 been faced with the problem that they can't go to the bank anymore and pay their water bill with that friendly teller that they normally have done that. Are we thinking about those people? Well, I hope we are, because that's going to be one of the discouragements that I see and the barriers for us moving forward in the future. So as businesses, what are we thinking about? What are we really looking at? How are we going to bridge this technology gap? I thought I'd look at some thoughts and ideas in about 6 areas. I'd like to talk about going back to work. It's going to be difficult. We're going to have to look at what are our workplaces look like. You know, if we didn't do good cleaning of our workplaces, or, you know, the janitorial staffs only dump the buckets once a week, our employees are going to be very skeptical about coming back to work. You're going to have to, as a businessman, make sure that safety is an element that you're thinking about. I think you're going to have to, as an employee, understand that it's not going to be simple for business people to meet every last solitary idea and thought that you've dreamed up or you've seen on Google or Facebook or whatever you're watching these days. So I think we've got to look at safety precautions. We've got to look at sanitation and cleanliness. Perhaps we have to take a little better look at our style of management. How are we going to manage our people? Are we going to be more thoughtful of their needs? We're certainly going to have to understand childcare. We're going to have to look at a host of other elements as it applies to the single mother, the single father, and generally the whole work career. I think employees have got to maybe start to think, is work a hobby, or is it something that they really are committed to? Each and every one of you, whether you're an employee or you're the boss of a company or you own the company, you have a role to play in success. Sure, you got to look out for your own health, and I think you've got to look out for the health of others. A little word about seniors. I guess that's what you would call me. I still work. I work because it's fun. I think COVID-19 opened our eyes about the problems of retirement, nursing homes, health issues. We forgot about a lot of these things. But we've got to remember about we're imposing technology upon a generation that isn't tech savvy. Many people have no access to computers. Many people shy away from a computer. They don't trust them. Many people have had their credit cards hacked. So we've got to figure out how we're going to deal with that. And we all have a responsibility. We talked a lot this morning about security. We know that there is sort of at times, well, don't worry about it. We'll pay for the loss of somebody hacking your credit card and stealing your money. We got to figure some of these things out. So access to information, and how are we going to teach these people about the new digital world? I think we're going to have to train them. I don't think we can lock our people up without creature comforts in nursing homes, without providing heating and cooling and the rest of the things. And we may have to take a good hard look at our pension system as it applies to the current OAS and CCP areas of reimbursement. What about going back to school? Oh, a big item. Yes, we got to get the kids back to school. You know, these are very formative years. They need to learn. But there's challenges. Remember, a lot of our schools have poor infrastructures. We've got a lot of kids, 15 and 20 kids to a portable. They're pretty close together. Most of them don't have air conditioning. Most of them have very poor ability to providing online learning in these portables. And we might want to look at the access to computers that are available in schools in poorer neighborhoods of our communities. Many of the students coming to our classes in our cities, in our urbans, in our rural areas have no access to communications. They don't have conductivity. They can't do their lessons online. We got to look at that. We got to start looking at what it's going to take to upgrade our schools. Just a couple of simple things that somebody told me about the other day. They said, you know, Bob, I hope the school boards don't wake up the first day and wonder why the buses aren't running. Well, we're going to probably find out that the bus companies that they've farmed this all out to forgot to change the oil. Okay, simple things. So let's make sure the buses and the oils are all being checked before we start up schools. Oh, and yes, let's make sure the water systems are working in our schools. Let's get the toilets flushed, and let's get the lights turned on to make sure that the technical ballasts all work that day and that we're not running around looking for those problems. What about retailing and small business? We all realize that small business is our lifeblood. Yes, we sent everybody home on mid-March. We shut down everything. We gave people some money to survive, but we still are dithering in how we're really going to help small business get started. Yes, many small businesses were in trouble before we got into COVID-19. But we're going to have to look once again at technology as it applies to small business. Many small businesses never were able to have online ordering systems. We also found out that small business, while they wanted to go ahead and use Uber Eats and all those sort of things, that it ate up most of the profit, if not all the profit, that many small restaurants were able to have. Yes, they stayed alive, but they didn't stay alive economically. So we got to go maybe back to the old cornerstone stone of the small business and look to it as how we're going to build our future economy. We need a new approach at all levels of government to make this happen. Small business needs a good look at the rules, the regulations, the planning, the building permits, and all of the other things that sit around in bureaucratic levels of government at federal, provincial, and municipal areas, particularly at municipal levels. What about work from home? Before we started into this, we had about 7% people working from home. Is it going to be the norm of the future? Personally, I don't believe so. It may get to 15 or 20%. There will be some types of businesses that will be able to work from home. But I think generally that's not going to happen. What did we learn when people went home? Well, once again, we were not equipped technology-wise to work at home. We might have had a computer, we might have had two, we might have had we might have had a couple of smartphones, but when mother was working in the basement and dad was in the closet and the kids were playing games and we had all those issues and we were living in a community where there was not strong broadband coverage, and even worse, we were really not able to afford what we were using. We got to fix those problems. We got to discuss them. We got to talk about them. Which really leads me to my last area that I'd like to chat about, and that is, what about this digital world? What is about this smart city, smart buildings? Well, we all know that water, electricity, and heating, which is probably all natural gas, are three absolutely essential utilities. Water is basically publicly owned. During various stages of deregulation since the 1970s, we have decentralized or put into public hands or private hands now our gas companies and our electric companies. But one major area of our business has remained very much in private hands, telecommunications. And it's done us well. It's served us well. But remember, it was focused on returning to shareholders conductivity. Maybe it's time to look at broadband as a public utility. You're probably saying, you grew up in the telecommunication industry. Yes, I did. Worked in United States, Canada, and other various countries of the world. But I'm becoming to convinced that we have to look at a new model for ensuring that access to conductivity is made available to each and every person in this country. And it has to be made at an affordable level that all of us, because it is the fourth utility. It is how we're going to move forward. And it's my desire that we speed up this process. We cannot wait. We've got to get on with it. I'm really not interested in downloading a movie in 1 minute by having 5G in the city of Toronto. I'm more worried about the people who can't even get online to do their schoolwork. Yes, it's going to take a vision. It's going to take leadership. And it's going to take a lot of things to eliminate all of those involved with the lobbying and with the interest groups and with everything else. And I think with that, I will stop, Bashir, and take some questions.
Thank you, Bob. That is very thought-provoking. One of the things that I know is, in your sweet spot is the what's stopping? The technology's been around, the smarts have been around. What's stopping cities from actually rolling out smart city initiatives that can lead them somewhere? What's the problem?
Oh, there are many there are many barriers. Internal knowledge, competent people who understand the entire process. Now, I'm not saying every city's that way. There are many that are in the United States and Canada that are beginning to really seriously look at this problem. I guess COVID-19 just hastened the process and began to stir up the pot. It's a combination. It's going to cost money, and like everything else, there are a lot of other conflicting issues right at the moment that everybody wants to look at. You know, we have the people who want to build nothing but renewable energy. We have people who want to take all the motor cars off the streets. We want to have, you know, we have no coordinated activity or a vision. And a vision has to start, in my opinion, at the top. It has to start federally, down to the provincial leaders, and then to the municipal leaders of the city. It's going to take our CEOs in this country to realize that this is what Canada's got to be in the 21st century. We can no longer sell off all our assets, sell off all our large companies, and allow our technology to be constantly moved offshore. We got to start thinking of Canada as a leader in this process in 2020 and beyond.
Yeah, very good. Bashir, anything for you?
Yeah, I have a question, actually a couple, but one of the things, Bob, is part of the problem, and you described the issue very well, is part of the problem that in Canada we are afraid to take a little bit of the risk, even if it's calculated, and therefore we don't end up doing anything because we are looking for something 100%, or because we haven't done it, then we end up going to US or anywhere else to do it. Is that
last year we study things. We are a country that has absolutely learned that the very best thing to do is hire a consultant. The consultant then can be the guy that the CEO and or the mayor and or the city council can then say, hey, I was not right or wrong. I took the advice of consultants. I have never been on a project in my life in this country that I did not have to first convince the consultant that that's where what we should be doing. I'm not taking I'm a consultant today. Come on. I was fortunate in 1985 to become sufficiently financially independent. I don't work, but I still work for many companies in this country. I've helped a lot of organizations succeed, but I'm a hands-on, and I take great pride in ensuring, and I take the risk with them.
Would you, Bob, would you actually, given some of the industries that we have either sold or whatever, as a government, would you either acquire them back or make it public-private partnership so they kind of community-based?
I think it's time for public-private partnerships. I believe that our people, our pension funds in this country must have a proportion of their money invested in this country. I am well aware that the Canada Pension Fund is looking for return on investment. And yes, they invest in real estate all over the world. But I think that it is time that I'm thinking that my money, which I pay each and every year into taxes, even to this day, begins to be focused on my country. It doesn't have to be all, but I think we've got to realize that this is a 39 million population country. We can be different, and we can move forward, but it's going to take more than just namby-pambyism to make it happen.
One more question then in that line is that, you know, a lot of companies, exactly as you point out, have outsourced overseas, and we give them tax breaks. Is it about time to start taxing them and then creating insourcing here, so they will build those skills back here, whatever, not just technology,
Well,
manufacturing?
Bashar, got to remember that most major industries in Canada are foreign controlled. We still, as Canadians, don't quite get the message that we still are a resource country. We're reluctant to allow a lot of our resource industries to grow and prosper. We are still one of the biggest producers of wood products, etc., but we export all of that. We're all guilty of.
We export that unfinished, by the way.
And we export that unfinished, and yet we buy back those kitchen cabinets made in China at IKEA, which we install in our new renovation projects. So perhaps it's time, and I guess I was guilty too. Commodore was a Canadian company. We made office furniture on Warden Avenue. Yes, we could not raise money in Canada for capital. No bank or anybody thought they thought we were out of our minds. So we went to America. We borrowed the money from a bank down there, and then all of a sudden, when we were about to go on the to the New York Stock Exchange, a big bank in Canada flew their jet down, wanted me to come back and borrow $30 million from them. Well, I'll tell you what I told them to do. Keep your jet. Sorry, Bashir.
No.
I believe you had one of your own at the time.
Yes, we did.
No, that's actually.
But that's not the answer. I think that we have allowed far too many of our assets to be moved to other areas when we should be working at them much more diligently than we have. I think my friend Ruffalo will agree. Certainly John, certainly a lot of other Canadian businessmen. But I think it's time that, as we've said today, we're smart. We're as smart as anybody in this world. We just need encouragement by our elected representatives. Unfortunately, I elect them, but often I guess I'm only one little vote, and perhaps I don't get to pick the right guy.
Bob, you talked about smart cities, right?
Right.
We haven't really.
I don't want a smart city. I want a conscious city.
Okay.
I want a city that is respectful of its citizens, providing the best platform, using its assets, which are owned by the citizens of the country, to use. I don't want people digging up my streets every time and never fixing them again, and then using my assets in bad ways. I see far too much of that. We need to get the game so that when I dig up the street, I not only put down water, sewer, technology, and everything. I do it once. I don't do it 20 times.
That means everybody working together, right?
That means collaboration. Working together.
Right.
It isn't, you know the game. Sure.
But it also means municipalities understanding this and not allowing the several digs.
That is absolutely correct. It all goes
like
back
the
to
municipalities have to take the lead.
The municipalities have to, stand up and say, hey, this is our world.
But one of the things, Bob, if
there are planning rules or federal rules or special deals that have been made in the past, et cetera, they've all got to be looked at. Somebody's got to sit down and have a plan to get industry back to work in this country, or we're just going to sputter along.
Bob, one of the things that Bashir and I have been enticed with recently was Jeff Moll's community
Yes.
idea. So government shouldn't be running things. Private business runs it and takes tremendous profits. And somewhere in the middle, there's a community run. So I know up in the Muskokas, the water is actually controlled by a community group. Any profits made from, and they had serious water problems. They've cleaned it up.
Yep.
And any profit made by that community organization goes back into the community.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's taking a big piece. It's being very professionally run by independent people who are paid a modest salary to be on the board. So, you know, nobody's making out like a bandit, but it's actually working. It's been there for 12 years. And Jeff is a big fan of trying to, you know, get more of that going. So,
a lot of cities are hampered by incompetence.
Yeah.
A lot of cities are hampered by union regulations. I'm not, you know, the unions are going to call me up and, you know, say, you know, we're looking after the workers and all that sort of stuff. But you can't run a city or anything today without some governance and some proper knowledge about what you're doing. You know, technology has moved people into things which there isn't the skills always internally in municipalities to run the business. It's the same like schools. Running a school is a business today. We've got more school boards. We've got more little, we run so many of these businesses, you know, like 35 years ago. But that's not what we've got today. We have to build some new models if we're going to move forward. Yeah. I got to give you a good example of the city of Chattanooga. Everybody in Chattanooga today gets 10 gig. You know, do I have 10 gig in Toronto? No. I'm lucky to get 1 gig, and it's not everywhere, and in many cases, people can't afford it.
Right.
So we've got issues that are going to require private industry, public industry, and elected government representatives to sit at the table and not just point fingers at each other in the future, or try setting up the usual picture awards and, you know, wrapping themselves on the back, or getting money for their mother to go make speeches. So, you know, that's the, you know, I'm not, I'll take them all on.
I know that you've been working hard at the Smart City initiatives with a lot of major municipalities around North America, not just in Canada. And I know you've gotten really close sometimes, and then it derails. What do you think the most often derailment is? Just the inability for them to get the concept, and to believe in it, and to put their weight behind it.
Well, it's more a model where they still feel that they know how to run it better than anybody else. So they always want 51%. And I don't know an investor that wants to not have at least 50-50 control. And the problem with many municipalities is that they have a 4-year, 5-year elected thing, and then you end up with a new city council, and ergo, hey, we're going to study it again, or we'll throw it back out.
Left turn,
This just goes on and on and on. And as I say, it takes real dedication and new models. You're going to have to get some new models.
So Bob, here's a one. Like you talked about Jeff Moll, and there's a question, in fact, saying, how could a community-driven financial model helps for local investments, job creation, and insourcing to Canada. And that's the question. My point was, we were talking a few days ago that what would happen if I was told you can invest up to 50,000 or 100,000, whatever it is, backed by CDIC, it's a bond. So government would, because government doesn't want to have money, they've been printing too much. The only thing that'll stop it is the printer breaks. But now, right, that's the only thing. Yeah.
Government wanted to spend the money, but as you well know, the infrastructure program hasn't been able to spend the money. Why?
Why? Yeah.
Well, because the projects and the way they were structured have made no sense to the bankers, that run infrastructure. It's the model was not there. So yeah, we've got some models. We'll be happy to, we have a group that works throughout the world. We'd be happy to sit down and talk. And there's some communities that know us pretty well. But there's some brilliant thinkers in this thing that we need to sit down with and work with to get some of these things done.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think COVID-19 has certainly opened the door.
Yeah, exactly. Do you see the role of the bank? Maybe people will bypass banks. And the reason I say that is if you look at M-Pesa, which is mobile.
Here, banks in our country are non-risk takers.
Exactly.
The banking system. I love the banking system. It's the most reliable thing in the world.
Right.
But they're not risk takers. Remember?
Which is the problem.
They're wealth management operators. Hey, come on. Yeah. There isn't a day goes by I don't get called by some bank about helping me run my wealth.
That's right.
Or somebody trying to tell me, I think the COVID-19 has brought on more snake oil salesmen than I've ever seen in my life, trying to sell programs that are going to build new businesses. And
Bob's getting inundated with lead gen offers on LinkedIn. Mohammed Khan mentioned in the chat box here that Pearson Airport's another great example of a community-run project.
Sure.
And Bob, I know that you've long admired how
not without its problems,
GTAA
but
runs.
It's done a good job, certainly.
Yep.
And there are some co-ops in this country that have done well. I
like the flower co-op.
One called the Ontario Flower Growers Cooperative, sure.
Right.
And one I did in New Jersey, as you well know, the vegetable co-op for the New Jersey government, which is major supplier of fruit and vegetables to the New York restaurant market. There are good models that can be done. We don't have to reinvent the wheels. We just have to have a desire.
We just have to apply them. Yeah.
Yep.
And maybe apply them in a broader way than they've been applied in the past.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And, Very good. Very good. Well, Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, for sure.
Yeah. Well, my pleasure.
This has been awesome.
Happy to answer questions and anytime.
You're amazing. In fact, what we will do, like everybody else, we've recorded this thing.
Okay.
Is that we will probably do a one-on-one session with you.
We'll do a delete. Just put the delete button in. That's fine.
No, we're not deleting anything. It's very good. But you're taken back to fundamentals, which is what has been missing.
I will leave now and have a good glass of Chardonnay or something like that. Is that all right? Thank you.
Absolutely. Bob, thank you very much for doing it.
Or Bob, as you would say, enchanté.
Enchanté. Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate it.
Be well, sir.
So that's fantastic. As the feedback we're getting, and Bob would have seen it on the screen, people are very impressed with they called him the teacher. It's a compliment actually to say when somebody's experienced and actually is giving the right advice. So there are a few guys on the panel they're saying, and I had seen a couple of here, that Bob, they want you back to talk about it. And the answer is yes, we will actually get Bob back. back because
You'll let me
just-
talk. All right. Goodbye.
yes, you have a lot to share, and we're definitely going to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
Thank you very much. All the very best, Bob.
Okay.